All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August monthly partnership meeting of the Southeast and Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership, or SCDRP for short. My name is Claire McGrath, and I have the honor of serving as the interim director of SCDRP. A very warm welcome to all of you today, and thank you very much for joining us. So today, I will first, as always, start out with some SCDRP announcements and updates. We've got some exciting things coming up. Then I will introduce today's speaker, Alec Eaton, the EMA coordinator for the City of Brunswick Fire and EMA. And then we will wrap up today's meeting with partner sharing time. So please be ready to share any announcements, opportunities, or calls from around the Southeast and Caribbean. All right, so first of all, we have a theme for the SCDRP 10th anniversary annual meeting. It is Navigating Extreme Events, Doing More with Less Together. The meeting will highlight proactive, collaborative strategies for navigating disasters in a future where the responsibility for disaster preparedness, response, and recovery is shifting toward state and local entities. The meeting will convene practitioners and stakeholders from across sectors and fields to identify and share innovative approaches to enhance state, territorial, tribal, and local emergency management capacity with potentially limited resources. The meeting will be held on March 4th to 5th, 2026 in Charleston, South Carolina. We are being hosted at the College of Charleston, and we anticipate opening registration in early October. Our meeting webpage is now set up, so you can go to scdrp.socorro.org/annual-meeting-2026 to stay up to date on meeting news.
Hey,
Can you hear okay now?
I can hear okay now. I can't guarantee how long this is going to work. I think
All right.
the software is messing up with my computer somehow. I tried to download the app and it's not going through. So
Okay, were you on the browser originally or the app? I find that the browser works better for me.
right now I'm on the browser, but that's what was giving me issues earlier. So I tried to download the app. That didn't work. So now I'm back on the browser. So fingers crossed.
Okay. All right. Well, I went ahead and started with some announcements because I didn't want to cut too much into your time by waiting. So I'll finish up with my announcements and then I will pass it over to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Lovely. Okay. We'll keep our fingers crossed that it keeps working. All right, so today is the last day to apply for the steering committee. This year, we are seeking 15 to 18 steering committee members to support meeting planning and development in line with this year's theme. Steering committee members should have professional experience and background in the Southeastern US or Caribbean that is relevant to the meeting theme and have professional contacts and connections within the field of resilience, emergency management, or disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. We're asking that interested members fill out a short application form to apply for the steering committee, and it's pretty short, simple, should take you no more than 10 minutes to complete. Applications will close at the end of the day today, so you can scan the QR code or go to the annual meeting website to read about the commitment and expectations and to access the application. And of course, you can email me with any questions as well at Claire at socorro.org. Right, we are thrilled by the response that we have received so far to the Grow Mentorship Program. We currently have 47 people signed up. So we are already more than double our signups from last year. Last year's mentorship program was one of SCDRP's most successful initiatives, and we are thrilled to expand upon it this year. We do need more mentors. We're seeking professionals with approximately 5 or more years of experience in resilience, coastal management, sustainability, and disaster preparedness, response, and recovery to mentor students and early career professionals in the field. In particular, this year we have a lot of folks who are interested in planning and policy. Mentors are expected to commit to meeting with their mentee 4 times during October 2025, or between October 2025 and March 2026. So it's not a huge time commitment. SCDRP provides training, a suggested framework for mentorship sessions, and support throughout the program. In the mentor-mentee relationship, the mentees are responsible for reaching out to schedule sessions with their mentor, setting goals to work on during mentorship sessions, and developing session agendas. So the prep work really falls mostly on the mentees, and mentors respond by providing guidance and resources. If you're considering being a mentor, I highly encourage you to sign up. The QR code on this slide will take you to our mentorship page. All right, and my last announcement, I'm very excited to announce that SCDRP is hosting a virtual panel discussion for Florida Climate Week. Florida Climate Week is hosted by the Volo Foundation. It is a celebration of engagement, education, and collective action focused on the climate and resilience challenges facing the state of Florida. SCDRP's panel is entitled When the Storm Hits Home, Local Leadership in a Changing Climate, and it will explore how local leaders are coming up with collaborative and innovative solutions to keep Florida communities resilient and safe during hurricane season. So as you can see, we have a fantastic lineup of speakers for this panel. It's going to happen October 6th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Follow SCDRP on LinkedIn and make sure you receive our newsletters for details on how to join us. All right, and next it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Alec Eaton. Alec is the EMA coordinator for the City of Brunswick Fire and EMA. His work focuses on innovative and collaborative strategies for enhancing resilience and disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. Alec, as a highly collaborative network of professionals whose mission is to cultivate safer, more resilient, and more equitable communities, we are very excited to learn about how you are tackling the impacts of extreme weather and natural disasters through cross-sector collaborations and community-based approaches. So with that, I am very pleased to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Appreciate that. Thank you for inviting me, and also thank you to Randall for suggesting and nominating me to come speak today. We've always had a long-standing relationship that has been great in developing each other in our areas. We're coastal neighbors, so it really helps and goes to show the network we have across Georgia and hopefully more across the states into the islands. So my name went over that. Some of my background, I like giving qualifiers only because it folds back into some of the other talking points that I have. You know, my background started in fire, went to EMS, started EMA. Then I got my post certification, so I became a cop very briefly, just to kind of broaden the horizon and get the full spectrum of public safety. So I've been very fortunate to work from Hurricane Matthew and every storm since has impacted the entire East Coast. Um, Irma, Isaias, Adalia, Dorian, which I'm sure like other people gave a little bit of PTSD because that storm was insane. Um, Planes, trains, automobiles, even beached whales on our beach where we had 50 pilot whales where we had to push it back in and stop the public from trying to give mouth to mouth to the blowholes of the whales. So you name it, in EMA, there is a broad spectrum of what you do and what you encounter with, and the most important thing is the people you interact with. Um, to share a great quote from Randall's boss, we are a very itty bitty agency with a very huge responsibility. A lot of our EMs typically become 1 to 2 man operations. If they're very fortunate, they can expand, which is fantastic. And I think that comes from the network that they build and the efforts that they embed into their community. So that's one of the very important things is understanding your community. EMs in my profession, what I've seen so far, you cannot sit behind a desk. You cannot be locked into an office. You have to be involved. A lot of people say to be seen, you have to be seen. So finding those community initiatives, those partner agencies are going to be incredibly important and very beneficial. When I go down some of these lists, my goal today is to be very actionable oriented and give information that you guys can take with you and hopefully get boots on the ground and start initiating if you haven't already. And to share some thoughts and some things that I've experienced that have really expanded what we do here locally. Now, my position hasn't been here for close to 30 years with the city of Brunswick. Prior to that, I was at EM for the county. And so, kind of starting all over, there's a new perspective that I got to learn on the challenges and the gaps that get identified by having agencies that don't have EM representation and the opportunities that are afforded to them. So, one of the big things I want to talk about is some real world strategies, again, actionables, and some initiatives that we're doing here locally. People, resources, and partnerships tied in with systems are critical. Being a small department, you can get lost in the weeds. I tell people there's a massive board behind me that has over 50 different projects, and I can easily get inundated with involvement if I don't have a system in place to make sure that I'm maintaining those relationships, those actionable steps and tasks, and giving myself timelines. It is critical that you guys, guys and gals, everyone starts figuring out that priority list. I use a Eisenhower matrix recently that has been pretty nice, kind of really showing what's important, what can wait, what can delegate, what can I can terminate from that list to really narrow down and focus to give the most benefit. One of the big projects we're doing that we like to talk about is the Disaster Faith Network. Now, Chatham and Randall, his partner Chelsea up there, they really started this initiative, and that we've also mirrored and implemented here, where we've seen the gaps in the support system within the community, but we've seen the desire from our faith-based networks. So we brought them together and started to coordinate. We just had our first session of our first tabletop in a 3-module system to be able to actually test their communication issues and positives. Next, we're going to test the resources capability. And third, we're going to implement actual strategies and training. So getting your faith-based networks, finding those agencies that have the capacity really is a big benefit. They have volunteers, they have access to funding, they have spaces, and they have communications. One of the big ones when it comes to communications, when we go into redundancy, I'm going to kind of skip around a little bit. Government, a lot of people, we have cellular, we have satellite, we have ham radios, but what do the public have? If you're pulling together a group like this, you need to have a way that if all towers and systems go down, there's still communication. We've got 2 answers. One, the trusted old pen and paper, having analog information. We've identified key information that is static and dynamic seasonal. So when we say static, we want to make sure we have paper like evacuation zones, certain points of contact, hazardous areas, distribution locations, key key things to have as far as equipment and resources that can be shared at a community info hub or information hub. So that way, when people go to these sites or these churches, we know the baseline is right here. This is where we're going. This is what could be affected. This is what we need to do to prepare. Then we have the seasonal stuff, knowing your territory, knowing what kind of effects you have during peak of hurricane season. If you're coastal like us, when king tides are, when a potential tornado could come down, the history, the elevation, those are key factors that you need to know, and you can share what happens early in the season. We don't typically have winter here unless the last 2 years we've actually had 2 major freezes and snow that we haven't seen since the 80s. We weren't prepared. We don't have brine trucks. We don't have the plows. We don't have all that stuff in reserve. So we had to really scramble to find that happen. And we also had to find locations to have people go because power was out. So those community hubs, those churches, that Disaster Faith Network has helped us in a large way. We've actually helped develop them to be able to be more thorough and team based with us. So teaching them how to be info hubs, points of distributions, warming, cooling stations, and eventually overnight congregate shelters that they can house and take care of themselves. They love to get involved. They've got their own strike teams. I can't tell you how surprised we are to find out that we have several churches that have been developing through the NIMS system strike teams to go out for emergency cutting for trees, to be able to do rescues, to be able to embed into government agencies that are already there to help us. And all it took was to go knock on their door and bring them together and say, we've got all these resources to share with you. And that's the key thing. Sometimes, a lot of times, you need to go out and go door to door knocking. They're not going to come to you. So taking that initiative to know your community and show up to them is critical. Being able to make that relationship face to face is what has brought these people together. So I encourage you. One of the things that I recently learned, and this is really shocking. Well, it's not shocking for other people. For us, because we are in a situation, our library system doesn't really work well with us right now. Even though they're a public library, they still have this autonomy that has allowed them to kind of do their own thing. And I just went to the National Homeland Security Conference in which we talked to Harris County that I believe was affected by Hurricane Beryl, which had about 4.2 million people affected. Their library system was their community hubs. They created a dashboard that allowed to show all 47 of their different libraries door entry, if they had power, if they had AC, what information to share out, how many people showed up, food, resources. They even had charging stations for equipment like chainsaws and mechanics that would go there to make sure that they could service things. Dream situation. But that got brought together because people showed up, they started communicating, and they started working together and pulling that resources in, like we're doing with the DFN. Now we're going to be able to create and mirror that library dashboard as a resource to give out. We want to make sure that other people who are going down this path have that same system of communication. But even if you don't have that, they started from a group chat. Having phone numbers of all these key players in your community is essential. So making sure that you're talking to them, getting their numbers, introducing them to one another, and keeping that flow of information as these seasons evolve will help you tremendously in a time of need. So creating that community, creating that opportunity will also identify those gaps, training situations, finding out that there might be training out there from one agency to another, or what we also recently found out, there's resources open to you after storms at the federal level through Department of Health and Human Services. This is another huge agency that we started working with for our homeless or unhoused population to be able to get them resources to get them into a livable condition, job opportunity, training, and different monetary things that can help them establish themselves into the other programs like the tiny homes that we have. We can help communities, with mental health problems that they might have, bring new programs that open up only after a disaster. So a lot of people weren't aware of this. We have a homeless coalition that's developing here, and they've had their communication issues, and we stepped in to say, through our disaster, through EMA, we can bring these resources to you. And we've now strengthened that relationship, and we've increased the resources, including grant funding, including new potential partnerships outside of this community that are going to come here to help the homeless population, veteran services, where people didn't realize that they qualified for certain federal funding because they weren't able to communicate with the federal side of the house. And now we've bridged that gap. So knowing your partners and knowing what opens up to you as an EM after a disaster is also critical. Start asking those questions. Start knocking on those doors. If there is somebody that's saying, "What do you need?" Well, I don't know what I need. What is out there? Help find that for me. That's what they're there to do. I strongly encourage making sure that you're talking to your state emergency management representation and your federal partners. And I know it's a little crazy right now with everything going on with the changes in FEMA. But this is an opportunity for EMs to really evolve and develop locally and take charge and lead what we can do together. And that's where some of the creative solutions kind of come into place, as well as technology. One of the recent things that I've really developed and utilized is AI. Now, I talk about my experiences. I've got a lot of, if you put it on paper, I've been very fortunate to have very unique, once in a lifetime disasters and moments to be able to bring to the table. Now, I had a tool that can amplify, be a manpower multiplier on my desktop for administrative things, for policies, for evaluations, for making a whole host of things easier and simple for me, makes my ability to go out and be a human and do the EMA side stuff so much easier. So I use a closed system AI. Now, those that might not be familiar, closed system means it does not touch the internet. It is not being fed or controlled by anything that's online where it can be manipulated, misinformation, shared out, or anything. So while I don't shy away from ChatGPT, it's got a lot of great functions and it's constantly developing. And the reality is, everyone's using it. They have over 700 million users a day. I was on a panel with one of the creators of OpenAI yesterday at my speaking at the National Homeland Security. Great guy. And the things that they're doing are amazing. How embedded they are and how companies are using it, even into the utilities. It's just incredible. But it's happening so fast that if you're not in that wave, you're going to get left behind. And so for us and the government, while it's still scary, while it's still unknown and it's new and it's change, finding safe parameters like a closed system AI is very important. So having that closed system allows it to where all of my documents, my after action reports, my policies, my procedures, my research, and other things that I can pull in that are vetted, that are credentialed documents, creates the brain. So then I can go in there and utilize and say, hey, I've got this policy, help me test it against this policy. What am I missing? Grant funding. This is another thing that I discussed at the speaking engagement. I took recently a economic development authority grant that has very specific requirements to include if you do anything with a building or equipment outside of utility granting that deals with job creation, they have the ability to put a lien on that property, right? Kind of scary. But they do that for private industry. Government, it still applies, but it's still kind of iffy for the government. So I took the talking points. I said, break this out for my leadership. Give me the key factors that's important to discuss. It lists that. I apply my project to the requirements of the grant. I say, how well does this match? Break down all the pros and cons, all the matching points, all the points that it probably would fail. Lists all that. Then I can create a matrix, a grading matrix based off 1 to 10 on don't even bother to absolutely this would be a slam dunk of the project. And I have it analytically help me disseminate all those key points. Then I can take that matrix to my leadership, educate them, and say, hey, go ahead and fill this out. Read over these talking points, read over the project points, give me your assessment, and I can give you this analytical assessment minus the emotion. It cuts through the decision making process and gets everyone focused. Now I can determine if this is worth it. And they can see on paper without any nuance, or if I forget stuff or anything of that nature, they can see all the work that I've done and make a clear decision and direction of what I need to do. And then I can start that process of applying for the grant. speeds up my process. Everything I just said to you, I was able to do within about 5 minutes to be able to create this system, and then I become the editor. And this is the other thing that we talked about. If you do anything AI or technologically based, you need to have a bottom up approach to ownership. To say, if I'm using AI, I'm responsible for what it says. So if I'm going to submit that, that means I've reviewed it, I've double checked it, and I've edited it to make sure it applies. I don't just take whatever it says, accept it, and move it. I need to be the editor of this project instead of the writer and creator and taking up so much of my time. So I want to move on to a lot of other stuff. I can talk about that all day. My key thing is if there's anyone that wants any follow-ups about some of those systems and resources I use, my information and my schedule will be available to everybody. So that way we can meet, I can help, and I can assist. Because I also talk about tabletops. Using the AI helps with tabletops. But here's an important thing for EMs to even focus on is the hazard stuff, the critical infrastructure. What are you looking at for hazmat releases, ethyl methyl bad things? We had another, we're starting to get into the critical infrastructure tabletopping kind of business. We have a huge industry over here that's Coca-Cola's #1 asset that makes all of their products, as far as the bottles, the labels, everything that it ships out on. They came to us on a Monday, said we need an exercise by Friday that tests all of our people for a hurricane flooding response of what we need to do. In that meeting, within 10 minutes of getting everything and applying the GEMA standards and the FEMA standards for exercising templates that could be a submittable, the objectives, the goals, the modules, the injects, we were able to identify all that, put that together into a package, and have that easily done by Friday. We reached out to our partnerships with National Weather Service. They made slides for us, gave us access. Having those relationships, we were able to create a new standard of how effective our tabletops are, to the point now the relationship has become so positive they want to invest locally into us, helping our fire crews with equipment, touring our top leadership at their facility, showing them and demonstrating the strength in our relationship. By taking those actions and showing up for your partners, they in turn invest into you. So making yourself able to go out there and be a part of their team is critical again. Go knock on their door. Go take them for lunch. Go, invite them around, tour the city. Get that one-on-one, face-to-face value, because that's going to help increase what you do. And again, to go bigger, little bitty department, huge responsibility, a lot of effort that goes into that. I love that saying because it's so true to what we do. People don't realize, I didn't realize EMA existed until I fell into it. And I fell in love with it. So knowing how involved we can get into things is incredible. We're doing living shoreline projects. We've got a new project that we're working on another grant to try to do up to potentially like a 4-mile multi-location living shoreline. Saving our tree canopies, investing in bacteria that is affecting our trees because trees absorb water and rainwater, especially in a location that is a bowl. We are at sea level here, so we have to really understand that not only do we have storm surge issues, but we have freshwater rainfall. And if it's all stacking on itself, what do we have naturally that is helping us in our community? And I can tell you our trees do so much. The amount of gallons of water they absorb, people didn't realize this. And then we need to make sure that we're protecting our environment in that sense because it protects us. And all of that can fall back into EMA through your creativity, falling into the 4 pillars. So either mitigation, preparedness, response, or recovery. If you can be creative and understand how all these different aspects come together to attack one of those 4 pillars, you can justify getting involved and helping those in your community and your neighboring communities as well. So jumping back to some more resources and tools, we talked about analog communications. I would always typically kind of ask for back and forth and conversation through some of my meetings, so like show of hands and all that stuff. I can see the little comments. So if you guys use ham radios, do like a little heart in the chat if you can, so we can kind of start seeing like how many people have redundancy. Ham radios are great for the government side to make sure that if comm towers go down, cells and phones and internet goes down, you've got someone on that ham radio that can communicate out to your hospitals, to your shelters, to your points of distribution. Well, what about your community members, your CERT teams, your volunteer teams, your church teams? Well, there is another tool that we're looking into. Government can't purchase, we can house the GMRS radios. It's a civilian level ham minus the training and the more expensive license. You can get a repeater, you can get a walkie talkie. I believe it's $30 for a year, but your community can utilize that are trained to be able to communicate back and forth as long as you have that liaison giving them that information that you've trained on blue sky days. You can have an effective community taking care of itself when you don't have to worry about if the state gets hemmed up or federal government and the resources coming from them. You don't have to rely solely on that. You want to. We focus a lot on it starts local, it ends local. So the more empowered resources you have locally to help people, the better off you are. And then always documentation, document. Making sure that you know where resources are going, who's dealing with them, because the more structured you can be when it comes to your response, the better and easier it is to get these other agencies at the state and federal levels to fold in quicker and give back into the reimbursements. Because when it comes to your leadership, it always goes back to money. Making sure you're thorough, you understand the requirements, the projects, the black and white of policies is critical on getting that money back to sustain your community. So the last thing you want to do when you're facing repetitive loss is not get reimbursements and not have support for your community to be able to build back quick enough to have that place called a home. Because if you can't build back, you don't have the resources and the relationships, you lose your community, that's it. You don't have anyone to serve. They moved on, and nobody wants to have that. We all have beautiful locations that we live in. We love our homes, our environments. These are our neighbors. We don't want to have displaced people. We don't want to have a huge loss on these storms. Mother Nature is a beast in itself, and we can only do so much. But when we work better together, we can do so much more to prevent and recover from the disasters that we face annually. That's where that cross-sector collaboration comes in. We talked about hospitals, or we've talked about churches. I mentioned hospitals, they're a resource. Private industry, critical resource, critical infrastructure. Your neighboring agencies, treating the neighboring EMs, police, fire, administration as your team members is critical. And bringing them in together. I want to make sure I'm respectful of everyone's time. I can go in. I got a lot of talking points. Another big thing I want to talk about when you bring all these people to the table, and as I mentioned earlier, some of the things that we're doing as far as tabletop exercising, I'm a massive nerd. So I love Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a DM for a public safety group. And I always joke because I throw a lot of puzzles at them, and I have some of the best detectives in our community that yell at me because they can't solve a fourth grade puzzle. So there's some confidence for you guys, but it's great entertainment. Nevertheless, bringing that nerdism into public safety has helped us tremendously. I use the D&D style in which I give them some rules and parameters and some abilities to make decisions and ask questions. Based off how they ask those questions and the roll of the dice determines the answer. It could be a critical success where they get everything they ask for. It could be middle of the road where some things might happen. They don't get everything they want. It could be worse for them. It could be a critical failure where they don't get anything. And in fact, it made it worse because they try to do this one action. And they have to get their brains around thinking around those projects and those problems. And it's great because when you create that forum where people can be collaborative and talk in a gamified situation, it makes it play. Instead of death by PowerPoint, going over the same three talking points that we all have on these tabletops. We create new variations that challenges the mind as long as like the injects, real world base get thrown in there and cause forks in the road. We did one for a huge resort that we have, and we had it was the 4th of July. A jet skier came up. There was a principal on the beach, some high important person. They started spraying and praying and going after everybody. And there was this mass panic evacuation that was going on throughout this hotel. We threw one inject in which the only police officer on the island got to an accident on his way to the scene, and they were without for about 2 hours because there was one way on, one way off. The panic and realization that their captains out there, their managers, they didn't even have a walkie-talkie system to start communicating to each other. They went into so much detail and realized the gaps that they had when it came to safety. And right there on the spot, you have them changing, ordering equipment, getting new training, but it had an effect. It made them feel something. It said, oh my God, this is serious. When you put things on the table, and I have the benefit of using like miniatures, maps, some technology, and rolling of the dice, getting them out of their seats, bringing them together, and letting them just naturally form a team. I cannot tell you how joyful, like how pleasant that is, and how much change that can cause. So I saw some people say that they have some DM friends. I highly encourage you guys to step into something like make a connection, non government related. There's a lot of nerds like us in the government, but go out and meet some people that do tabletop gaming and bring them into the fold. You might not know about it, but I assure you that there are people in your community. There is a gaming store somewhere. Go talk to them and say, what will your thoughts be on creating a disaster scenario? Not only that, but there's EMs out there that are creating professional disaster games that you can fall into. There are great examples out there that can be a starter pack for you, and you can format that to your community. So you can throw in local hazards that you see that other people might not to challenge your people. And you have statistics and basics for the baseline to be able to do that. So find those unique ways. Colleges, universities, again, huge resources to reach out to. We're talking to several of the colleges and universities now in their EM departments to bring them into our side to be a potential deployable. We're looking at a state response team to be able to say, um, come into our field if you're unaffected and your leadership is okay with it, fold into a county EM and help them in their gaps. Because we face a lot of EMs. We have 159 counties, I believe. It might be more or less, but there's part time, there's ancillary duties, so they don't really even pay attention to EM stuff unless they need to. And there's a few that have a solid team that can really help their community. But those that are without in our area, 159 counties, perfect. There are a few that are so rural that don't get the resources that someone like us on the coast does, that I can get deployed out to them and help them and establish and support them. We just did that with Clinch County, and hopefully, knock on wood, their part-time EM director, who is fantastic, working 2 other jobs for the community, will become a full-time EM soon because we talked to his leadership, said he's great. Here's all the things that he needs to do, and you need to support him. And they listen. And so showing that network across the board and bringing in more people really helps and bolsters what we do. So being open, passionate, and supportive to other professionals in this field. We are our own team. We might be very few, but we are vast because we are embedded into every agency across coast to coast, over the oceans, everywhere. And with the climate change, and I say climate change because the data that shows weather patterns are different, they're intensifying, they're going, we have snow here again. Since the 80s is the last time we had snow, and we were shut down for days. So yes, there are some things going on that we have to prepare for. And we only do that by continuing to evolve and support each other throughout the community. So making sure that you find your partners, making sure you can support them and help them across the board. One of the big things I learned Very quickly at the National Homeland Security Conference, I got to meet some of the, as I was told, nationally known EMs that have dealt with coast to coast huge disasters behind the scenes. Their number one thing they said is they knew everybody and they were supportive. It was a very friendly and supportive community that talked to each other, that showed up for each other, and that was an established relationship prior to that helped them through massive disasters throughout the community. And again, everyone loves to get on a moving train is something I've recently been saying. We can talk about it all day long. We can write stuff and we can lock ourselves in the office. But it's not until you get out there and start doing these things that's when you get the support. Everyone likes to see progress, and the simple showing up for somebody else or showing up for your community is that progress to pull people in. And I really want to encourage you guys to get out there, find ways to reduce that office time, that mitigate that administrative. There was a great study that came out through IAEM, a group of EMs that took a couple of times to see where we spend our time the most. There was 31% on preparedness, about 22%, I believe it was, on administrative, and it fell off ever since then. So the mitigation, the response, and the recovery were some of the lowest things we could spend our time on, and that needs to change. That only changes when we reduce the office time, the administrative time, and we get out there into the public and we get face-to-face time. We get the human aspect more developed and strengthened. So again, I got 3 points for call to action to encourage you guys. And then I'm going to wrap up any questions and anything from there. I appreciate you guys listening to me this long. So identify one creative solution you can implement in the next 60 days. Go outside of your public safety group, find people that might have some ideas, bring them into the fold. You never know where your next best idea is going to come from. So always talk to people. Identify one collaborative partnership that can establish or strengthen this year. You might be in the back of your head thinking, I really need to get involved with this facility over here that I know has some ethyl methyl bad stuff, or even worse, maybe some nuclear stuff. You want to make sure you strengthen that relationship some way, somehow. I'm going to go to our library system and I'm going to find a way to champion them and create a trophy that makes them superheroes to say, you guys are so amazing that you've done this for the community. There's so much more you can do. Come be our heroes. Commit, attend. Show up to meetings, show up to workshops, make a way to have your face visible and be supportive to your neighbors. If they invite you to a training session, if they invite you to even a town hall meeting, just show up. Be there for them, and I guarantee you, you will find how quickly you establish a brand new relationship and a network that will open up new resources to you down the road. I've really valued this time. I'm really excited to learn about this group more. I can't thank you enough, Claire, for bringing me in, allowing me to kind of talk about what I'm nerdy about. And at this point, if you guys have any questions or whatever we can do next to continue to grow this relationship, I'm here for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alec. I think I can speak for everyone when I say everything you said was
I can't
really
hear you.
valuable.
I don't know if you can hear
Oh,
me.
oh, we can hear you. Can you not hear me?
Okay. I can't hear you, but if you guys can hear me, I'm just going to be quiet and let you talk.
Okay. Can everyone else hear
I'll look in
me?
the chat.
Okay. Can you all hear me? Okay, I see a thumbs up. Um, okay, well, we'll open up to questions. And yeah, just want, even though Alec can't hear me, just on behalf of our whole group, I think everything that Alec said um, really speaks a lot to our partnership. So Ren, I see that you have raised a hand. Would you like to ask a question? And we can put it in the chat as well so that Alec can see it.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about how this might be applicable to working with youth, perhaps, because I'll be running a program about like changing perspectives through like art and sciences And so I really love the idea of like building out a tabletop to as a way to like respond to natural disaster. And as a fellow D&D nerd, I could definitely put something together, but like I'd love to hear your perspective of like how that might relate to what you've been doing.
Okay, great question, and I can hear you now. Can you guys hear me officially?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me just take a second to highlight. You have a great question about involving the youth. I have an amazing new specialist here with me. She has just started, and she is creating a fossil fest. She is finding ways to get involved. She's coming from the education world into this and applying that, where she goes and she's taught homeschool, different educational systems, and so finding ways to get them involved hands-on at community events and then give them the education and background of what they find and involve it into the environmental, the community, how to prepare for it, how to protect it, and fold that interest and gain that through that involvement. So anything that you can do, and I'll be happy to connect her as well because she's got great ideas and she's like really stepping up the game of what we do here. She has a great passion for that. So I'm glad to hear that you do as well. Getting involved with the community, showing them how at a kid level they can be prepared and ready, and just finding things that spark their interest. Again, collaborative effort. We could definitely help with that. I hope that answered the question a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And I would definitely love to connect. I think I found you on LinkedIn, so I sent you a connection request.
Great. I'm gonna put her name and email in the chat as well, so you guys could also connect and reach out to her.
Excellent. And Alec, if you could put your contact information in the chat too, if you're willing, that would be fantastic.
Of course.
Great. Any other questions? You can raise your virtual hand. You can put them in the chat. Yeah, Jeff.
Hey, Alec, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I heard you say there at the end you wanted to learn more about us. So the Southeast Caribbean Disaster Resilience Partnership, we see ourselves as a regional collaboration network for professional emergency managers like yourself, as well as resilience and disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. And so specifically focusing on North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, as well as Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So I guess my question to you, I actually have two questions. The first one has to do with our organization, and thank you for giving the presentation today, and where you might see that we can continue to help in the collaborative efforts that that we want to have with you in the emergency management communities.
Great question. Thanks, Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry, how can you guys help us continue the collaboration?
Right. Yeah. How do we continue to collaborate, and how do you use the SCDRP as a platform for getting information out and also bringing people together?
Yeah, I think teamwork number one. You guys have a far reach, and seeing the amount of people that you connect with are huge. So being a contact point of knowing what's going on in the different areas, and then saying, hey, I might know Alec has this resource out here that I can share with this resource out here, is a huge benefit. I think, for example, North Carolina recently, when they had flooding earlier this year, we have a resource of relationship building with Aid Kit, which is a system in which it kind of helps uh, stack up and give out aid in a very protected way. They helped with the wildfires out in California, where I, as a government, can put in relief funding into this kind of account, and it can go and be my case manager for people that are affected, and go through and say you can apply. It identifies your verification, your ID, so there's no duplication, and it's traceable, it's reimbursable, and being able to connect that resource to those that are already dealing with all the flooding and everything else, helping get that connected. So being a bridge of resources and communication. I think the meetings that you guys have, the reach that you have more frequently would be great. And any kind of way we can help and be involved, we're happy to do so.
Excellent. Yeah, appreciate that. The second question was on the living shoreline. kind of interesting as from emergency management agency working on a living shoreline. Can you expand upon that a little bit and let us know more?
Yeah. So right off the bat, it's a more cost-effective natural resource that has been a proven barrier to help reduce the storm surge and the rising shoreline because we have to protect our land. So we don't want to continuously lose the land that we're trying to develop. So you have that where you have native species and plants. So you build out the ecosystem, you strengthen it. And the benefit of the native plants is they are stronger rooted because they're from that area. Instead of transplanting things in, you're able to use the environment to protect the environment that you have. And there's a lot of examples up and down the coast. I was in um, West Palm Beach for the governor's conference in Florida, and they had them all spread out, and they've done a great job. And we're also starting to see that there are 4 mangroves areas that are developing in southeast Georgia. They're moving up. Typically, they couldn't survive up here, but we're starting to see them migrate up here, and that's a potential new vegetation that could accommodate us and really help with that storm surge inundation. So finding those resources, long-term mitigation falls right into EM. And having that connection with like NOAA, Oceanic, different agencies that support living shorelines, we become a connector feed to that and give access to our community. Plus the private industry that loves living shorelines. They might not want more drudged up concrete barriers that, take away from the natural beauty. So this is a great alternative to compromise for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I can share out that study for the EM stuff to you, Claire, that you can send out to this group.
Perfect. Yes.
Yep. It was a great study. And that was just one aspect. It talked about a lot of aspects with what we do and deal with. It kind of was like a gap identifier and what we could do to help benefit ourselves.
Wonderful. All right. Well,
thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer corrected me. There was 8, and they're only on Cumberland.
Awesome. The power of collaboration right there.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, Alec, thank you so much for speaking to our group today, and we really look forward to keeping you engaged. I mentioned that our annual meeting to you earlier. I'm already imagining like maybe you running a sample tabletop exercise at our annual meeting.
I would love to.
Yeah, something like that. I think there's a lot of opportunities for continued collaboration. Thank you for putting your email into the chat. So everyone, if you have follow-up questions, I recommend please reach out to Alec. And Alec, once again, thank you so much for giving your time to us today, and we look forward to continue working with you.
Well, thank y'all. I really appreciate y'all. I'm looking forward to working with everybody, and I'm always here to help.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, everyone, have a wonderful day.